A very Jai Hind and good noon, dear students. Welcome to the another class of English. Continuing with the chapter, The Enemy. We are starting from page number 33 and the fourth line. You will have to give the anesthetic if he needs it, he said. Okay, so from here we have to start. As I told you that the enemy is about the conflict which goes inside Dr. Sadao, that which duty he should prefer. So here he was all set to operate the American prisoner of war, and he's having a conversation with his wife Hannah, and there they were discussing about the anesthetic. So let's begin. She repeated blankly, but never have I. It is easy enough, he said impatiently. He was taking out the packing now, and the blood began to flow more quickly. He peered into the wound with the bright surgeon's light fastened on his forehead. The bullet is still there, he said with cool interest. Now I wonder how deep this rock wound is. If it is not too deep, it may be that I can get the bullet. But the bleeding is not superficial. He has lost much blood. Anesthetic means, dear students, a substance that induces insensitivity to pain. Or you can say the person becomes unconscious so that he could not feel the pain. So that is known as anesthetic. Superficial means or occurring at or on the surface. Okay. Sadao told Hannah that she would have to inject the injured man with a substance that induces insensitivity to pain. Hannah replied that she had never done that earlier. Sadao said in a haste that it was very easy. Sadao was removing the packing, and now the blood started flowing faster. He looked at the wound with the help of the bright surgeon's light fixed on his forehead. He announced that the bullet was inside the man's body. He wondered that how deep the wound made by the rock was. He said that if the wound was not very deep, then he could get the bullet out. He added that the bleeding was not from the surface of the skin, which meant that the wound was deep and the man had already lost a lot of blood. At this moment, Hannah choked. He looked up and saw her face, the color of sulfur. Her face, the color of sulfur, means sulfur is a yellow colored element, beta. And the clause here means that her face became pale yellowish in color. So when Hannah saw Sadao inspecting the wound, she could not see the site, and so she coughed. Sadao looked at her and saw that her face was yellowish in color, like the color of sulfur. Don't faint, he said sharply. He did not put down his exploring instrument. If I stop now, the man will surely die. She clapped her hands to her mouth and leaped up and ran out of the room. Outside in the garden, he heard her retching, but he went on with his work. Leaped means jumped, and retching, there is a word retching. Retching means beta vomiting. Okay, vomiting को retching भी कहते हैं. So Sadao reacted and he ordered Hannah not to faint because he had already seen her condition. She was already pale yellowish in appearance and it seems like she is going to faint very soon. And that's the reason Sadao reacted and ordered her not to faint. Dr. Sadao did not stop his work and continued inspecting the wound. Sadao said that if he stopped, the injured man would certainly die. So he knew the situation. He said that now I have started doing my work over this man. If I will stop now at this moment, then definitely this man will die. Hana put both her hands on her mouth, jumped up and ran out of the room. Sadao heard her vomiting in the garden, but he continued with his work. So again it shows that he was quite dedicated towards his work. It will be better for her to empty her stomach, he thought. He had forgotten that, of course, she had never seen an operation. But her distress and his inability to go to her at once made him impatient and irritable with this man who lay like dead under his knife. Now see, as Sadao needed Hana's help to operate the man, he thought that it would be better for her to empty her stomach so that she would not feel uneasy time and again. Because Hana was seeing first time doing him operation, and obviously it is quite obvious whenever we are not used to these situations, we feel very we feel very uncomfortable, and same was with Hana. And Dr. Sadao was thinking, though he could not go out with her, but he thought of her and he thought that it would be better for her to empty her stomach so that she would not feel uneasy time and again. He was reminded that Hana was seeing an operation for the first time, and it was not a pleasant thing to see, of course. All blood and everything, and she could not bear that. Sadao was irritated and impatient. Though he did not leave his work, he continued to be with that patient. That shows that he was quite dedicated. But also he was dedicated towards his wife. And that was the thing, he was feeling irritated and impatient as if wife was under stress. And he was not able to help her due to the man who lay under his knife, means due to the American prisoner of war. He was just like a dead person. This man, he thought, now next page we are. This man, he thought, there is no reason under heaven why he should live. Sadao thought that there was no reason for him to make efforts to save the man, because there was no reason for him to live. Why there was no reason for him to live? Because he thought that if he will survive, then also the Japanese army will caught him and ultimately he will die. And if he's not going to treat him, also he's going to die, right? Unconsciously, this thought made him ruthless and he proceeded swiftly. In his dream, the man moaned, but Sadao paid no heed except to mutter at him. Ruthless बच्चे means harsh or merciless. जब आप you do not pay any kindness towards anybody, that becomes then you become ruthless. Moaned means when you make low soft sounds due to pain, that is known as moaning. And paid no heed, heed means attention. So paid no heed means did not pay any attention to. Dr. Sadao became merciless and started working fast. Means he started working on that man fast. The injured man moaned in his state of unconsciousness. But Dr. Sadao kept on working without paying attention to the man's pain. Groan, he muttered. Groan if you like. I am not doing this for my own pleasure. In fact, I do not know why I am doing it. Groan, again, it is a sound. When you are in pain, you groan. You grow, right? You groan. So that is groan again is a sound which you produce during pain. So Sadao, no, he said to the injured man that he was free to cry in pain. And Sadao was not concerned that the man was in pain. He did not want to operate him and did not have any reason for doing so. He said that in fact I myself don't know why I am doing it. The door opened and there was Hana again. "Where is the anesthetic?" she asked in a clear voice. Sadao motioned with his chin. Motioned with his chin means he did not say anything from his mouth, but he just pointed from with the help of his chin. ऐसे chin ऊपर करके he pointed. "It is as well that you came back," he said. "This fellow is beginning to stir." "But how shall I do it?" She had the bottle and some cotton in her hand. "But how shall I do it?" she asked. "Simply saturate the cotton and hold it near his nostrils," Sadao replied, without delaying for one moment the intricate detail of his work. "When he breathes badly, move it away a little." Okay. Now see, they both are having conversation. Now Hana is also ready to give anesthetic to the man. And there is a word, beginning to stir. Beginning to stir means that the person was getting again gaining his consciousness. वो फिर से होश में आ रहा था. Okay. Saturate here means wet, to wet something. Now see, Hana entered the room and asked Sadao for the anesthetic which she had to administer to the injured man. Her voice was clear, which shows that now she was prepared to help him. Whom? Dr. Sadao as well as the patient, of course. Sadao moved his chin to guide her to the bottle of anesthetic. He added that it was good that she came as the man had started to gain consciousness, and it was important to sedate him. Sedate him means to put him back to the unconsciousness. Otherwise, it would be difficult for Dr. Sadao to operate upon him. Hana held the bottle and some cotton in her hands. She asked what she was supposed to do. He told her to put some anesthetic on the cotton and to place the cotton near the man's nostrils, nose, right? He did not stop his delicate work, and he was continuing with his work, and he was guiding Hana at the same time. He was doing both the things, and added that she should remove the cotton when the man started to breathe badly. Okay. Now, let's see. She crouched close to the sleeping face of the young American. It was piteously thin face, she thought, and the lips were twisted. The man was suffering, whether he knew it or not. Watching him, she wondered if the stories they heard sometimes of the sufferings of prisoners were true. They came like flickers of rumor, told by word of mouth and always contradicted. In the newspapers, the reports were always that wherever the Japanese armies went, the people received them gladly, with cries of joy at their liberation. But sometimes she remembered such men as General Takima, who at home beat his wife cruelly, though no one mentioned it now that he had fought so victorious a battle in Manchuria. If a man like that could be so cruel to a woman in his power, would he not be cruel to one like this, for instance? Now see what's happening here. Now Hana is thinking something. Hana, she sat in a squat and went close to the face of the sleeping American man, because she has to give the anesthetic, so she has to go close. And when she was looking at him, she felt sad and sympathetic towards him as she saw his thin face and twisted lips. She knew that he was suffering. She wondered whether the stories that she had heard about the torture meted out to the prisoner were true. The stories were like rumors which spread when people told them to others. On the other hand, in the printed media like the newspapers, it was mentioned that the Japanese army was welcomed wherever it went and people praised it for their freedom. Hana recalled an officer of the Japanese army, General Takima, who was cruel to his wife and would beat her. No one talked about it anymore, as he had won the war in Manchuria. Just because he had won a war in Manchuria, this part of his life was not highlighted, that he used to beat his wife. Hana thought that if a man could be cruel towards his wife, then of course he could also be cruel to the prisoners in his captivity. The one who is not having any soft feeling towards his wife, how can you expect that he would be soft towards the prisoners who are there in his captivity? She hoped anxiously that this young man had not been tortured. It was at this moment that she observed deep red scars on his neck, just under the ear. Scars, marks. Okay? So Hana hoped that the man had not been tortured by the army. Just then she saw deep red colored marks, injury marks. Those were injury marks on his neck under the ear. Those scars, she murmured, lifting her eyes to Sadao. But he did not answer. At this moment, he felt the tip of his instrument strike against something hard. Dangerously, now we are on the next page, dangerously near the kidney. All thought left him. He felt only the purest pleasure. He probed with his finger. Probed here means searched. He probed means he searched with his fingers, delicately, familiar with every atom of this human body, because he was a well-trained surgeon. He knew how to handle the things. His old American professor of anatomy. Anatomy is the branch of science, dear students, which concerned with the bodily structure of humans, animals and other living organisms. Okay, and especially you can say it deals with the dissection and the separation of parts, anatomy, right? So his old American professor of anatomy had seen to that knowledge. Ignorance of the human body is the surgeon's cardinal sin, sirs. He had thundered at his class year after year. To operate without as complete knowledge of the body as if you had made it anything less than that is murder. Cardinal means basic or first. Now see, Hana, she saw the scars and she mentioned the scars to Dr. Sadao and asked about them. But because Sadao was quite dedicated to his work, he did not answer. At that moment, the tip of his instrument, Dr. Sadao's instrument, with whom he was operating on the body, hit something hard. And what is that? Of course, the bullet. It was very close to the kidney. कहाँ पे hit हुआ था bullet? Kidney के पास. Dr. Sadao was not thinking of anything else. He was happy to have finally found the bullet, and it was the extreme pleasure that finally he got the bullet. He moved his fingers inside the wound. Sadao was familiar with the tiniest part of the human body. His professor of anatomy in America had told them that if a surgeon ignored the knowledge of any part of the body, it was the first misdeed that he had committed. That whenever we are working, the professor told that anatomy means you should know the very tiniest details of the human body, and if you are ignoring something, that was the very first misdeed you are committing. To operate upon a body without detailed knowledge of it, as much as the person who makes it has, would amount to committing murder of that body. That means if you do not have well knowledge, if you will not have a deep knowledge about the body you are operating upon, that means you are committing a murder. So you should have a deep knowledge when you operate upon someone's body. And he was recalling all those words from his American professor. He taught, he went to America right at the age of 22 to learn medicines and to learn to do his MBBS, right? Sadao's professor would repeat these words in his class often. Now see, it is not quite at the kidney, my friend, Sadao murmured. It was his habit to murmur to the patient when he forgot himself in an operation. Forgot himself in an operation doesn't mean कि वो भूल जाता था ऑपरेशन करते वक्त कुछ भी. Forgot himself in the operation here means he used to get engrossed in the operation. He used to get indulged, so deeply indulged in his work. ये नहीं कि कैंची पेट में रख के भूल गया वो पेशेंट के. No, it's not like that. Okay. So Sadao spoke to the injured man, and it is his habit that he used to murmur while doing operation. So he said that the bullet had just missed his kidney. He said this thing to the patient or himself. He used to murmur. He said, bullet had just missed the kidney. If it would have hit the kidney, this man would have been died. When Sadao would get engrossed in the operation, he would start talking to the patient. My friend, he always called his patient, and so now he did, forgetting that this was his enemy. So whenever he used to operate upon any patient, Dr. Sadao used to call or address that patient as what? My friend. That was his habit. जब भी वो ऑपरेशन करता था तो he used to address the patient as my friend. How are you, my friend? This is how he used to talk. And eventually, because he was so engrossed, he forgot that he is operating upon his enemy, and because it was his habit, he addressed this American prisoner of war, who at the moment is his patient, as my friend. He called the injured man also my friend. He forgot that this man was not a friend but an enemy. Okay, so dear students, I think we have covered till here today, and we have covered the gist of the section today, the very important line, my friend, and he called the injured man my friend, forgetting that this was his enemy. So we have a very beautiful line we have done today, and I think we are very close to the gist of the lesson. So for today, that is it. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, keep revising your lessons. Hope to see you all soon. Thank you and have a great day ahead. Bye bye.